Good morning, students. This is your science teacher, Mr. James. Are you excited to learn? Okay, good. Let's start. Before we start, I want you to prepare the following materials. First, your science textbook, your science workbook, your pen, and your earphone. It's review time. Before we start, let's have a quick revision about our lesson last week. So our lesson last week is all about clouds. How do clouds form? Okay, let's proceed to our next topic. What are the three main types of clouds? First type of cloud is what we call cirrus clouds. Cirrus clouds are wispy, feathery clouds. Cirrus comes from a word meaning a curl. Cirrus clouds form at high altitudes, usually above 6 kilometers, and at low temperatures. They are made of ice crystals and indicate fair weather. So when you say fair weather, there is no precipitation, so you can do your laundry or your outdoor activities. Okay? Okay. Okay, let's proceed to the next type of clouds. The next type of clouds is what we call cumulus clouds. So cumulus clouds look like cotton. The word cumulus means heap in Latin. Cumulus clouds form less than 2 kilometers above the ground, but they may extend upward as much as 18 kilometers. Short cumulus clouds usually indicate fair weather. Okay, the last type of cloud is what we call the stratus clouds. So stratus clouds form flat layers. It came from Latin word strato, meaning spread out. Stratus clouds usually cover all or most of the sky and are dull, gray color, just like in the picture. As stratus clouds thicken, they may produce drizzle. So when you say drizzle, it's a light rain. Rain or snow. We're done with our revision. Now let's proceed to our main topic, air masses. So I want you to open your book on page 439. Okay, so let's proceed. Our objectives for these lessons are, okay, first, identify the major air masses that affects weather in North America and describe how they move. Next, name the main types of fronts. Number 3, explain type of weather that is associated with cyclones and anticyclones. Okay, next. Before we proceed to the next slide, I want you to answer the following questions. First, how often do you watch the weather on TV? Why? Next, what kinds of weather or weather conditions are there? Third, can you name situations in which weather affected your plans? Explain. Vocabulary words. At the end of the lesson, you will understand the meaning of the following words: air mass, continental, occluded, tropical, jet stream, cyclone, polar, front, maritime, anticyclone. What are the major air masses? Before we start with that, we'll first define what is air mass. So when we say air mass, it's a huge body of air in the lower atmosphere that has similar temperature, humidity, and air pressure at any given height.
An air mass is a huge body of air, so large that it often stretches for several thousand miles. Air masses generally have similar temperature and moisture properties throughout. The geographical location from which an air mass originates is its source. The types of air masses formed on Earth are determined by their source region. Air masses can have one of four qualities: continental, maritime, tropical, or polar.
What are the major air masses? Tropical or warm air masses form in the tropics and have a low pressure.
Tropical air masses form in regions of lower latitudes and are usually warm.
Next major air masses is what we call polar or cold. Air masses form north of 50 degrees north latitude and south of 50 degrees south latitude. Polar air masses have high air pressure. So it is located here, north 50 degrees latitude and south 50 degrees latitude.
Polar air masses form over polar ice caps and are very cold.
Next major air masses is maritime. Maritime air masses form over oceans. Water evaporates from the oceans, so the air can become very humid.
Maritime air masses originate over a large body of water and are also known as oceanic air masses. Because they form over water, they are moist.
Next major air masses is what we call continental. Continental air masses form over land. Continental air masses have less exposure to large amounts of moisture from bodies of water. Therefore, continental air masses are drier than maritime air masses. Remember, maritime air masses forms in oceans. Okay?
Continental air masses occur over large land masses and usually contain less moisture than other air masses, meaning they tend to be dry.
Okay, next, open your book on page 440. North American air masses, figure 2.
And over continents like this, we find air masses that are relatively dry. Several major air masses affect our weather in the United States. Maritime tropical air masses, forming over the oceans near the equator, are warm with a great deal of moisture. During the summer, these air masses usually result in rain. But in the colder months, the precipitation could be snow.
In the northern Pacific Ocean and in the North Atlantic, we sometimes find maritime polar air masses. During the summer, these air masses in the Pacific usually mean fog along the west coast. In the east, they often result in cooler temperatures. But in the winter, these polar masses from the oceans can produce heavy snow and sometimes even blizzards. To the south, continental tropical air masses form over Mexico during the summer, bringing hot, dry air to many states in the United States Southwest. Finally, continental polar air masses form over northern Canada, resulting in very cold winter temperatures in parts of the northern United States.
How air masses move. When an air mass moves into an area and interacts with other air masses, it causes the weather to change. In the continental United States, air masses are commonly moved by prevailing westerlies and jet stream, but we will also discuss fronts. Okay, in the next slide, we are going to discuss prevailing westerlies. Are you ready? Okay, let's proceed to the next slide. How air masses move. First, prevailing westerlies. The prevailing westerlies, the major wind belt over the continental United States, okay, generally push air from west going to east. That is prevailing westerlies. Okay, so next is what we call jet streams. When we say jet streams are bands of high-speed winds about 10 kilometers above Earth's surface, as jet streams generally blow from west to east. Air masses are carried along their tracks. So in this picture, we can see that jet streams are here. Okay, so these are what we call jet streams. Jet streams forms over the boundaries between air masses of different temperature. Okay, so these are jet streams. Okay, so next. So next we have fronts. So when we say fronts are huge masses of air move across the land and the oceans. They collide with each other but do not easily mix. And fronts are boundaries between two air masses. So we have four types of fronts. First is what we call cold front. Next, warm front, occluded front, and stationary front. In our next slide, we will discuss them one by one. Okay, let's proceed. What are the main types of fronts? So when we say fronts, these are boundaries between two air masses. Colliding air masses can form four types of fronts. So we have cold fronts, warm fronts, stationary fronts, and occluded fronts. Cold fronts. Cold air is dense and tends to sink. Warm air is less dense and tends to rise. When a faster cold air mass runs into a slower warm air mass, the denser cold air slides under the lighter warm air. The warm air is pushed upward the leading edge of the colder air. A cold fronts form. As the warm air rises, it expands and cools. The rising air soon reaches the dew point, the temperature at which water vapor is condenses. Clouds form. Heavy rain or snow may fall. Next is warm fronts. At warm front, a fast-moving warm air mass overtakes a slower cold air mass. Because cold air is denser than warm air, the warm air moves over the cold air. What if the warm air is humid? What will happen? There will be a light rain or snow falls along the front. What if the air is dry. Okay, very good. There's a scattered clouds form. Okay, next. The next type of fronts is what we call occluded front. This is the most complex weather situation, where the two warm air mass is caught between two cooler air masses. The denser cool air masses move underneath the less dense warm air mass and push the warm air upward. The two cooler air masses meet in the middle and may mix. The temperature near the ground becomes cooler. The warm air mass is cut off or occluded from the ground. So, as the warm air cools and its water vapor condenses, the weather may turn cloudy and rain or snow may fall. Next type of fronts is what we call stationary fronts. Sometimes cold and warm air masses meet, but neither one can move the other. In this case, the front is what we call stationary front. Okay? Where the warm and cool air meet, water vapor in the warm air condenses into rain, snow, fog, or clouds. But if an stationary front stalls, it may bring many days of clouds and precipitation. What weather do cyclones and anticyclones bring? As air masses collide to form fronts, the boundaries between the fronts sometimes becomes distorted. This distortion can be caused by surface features such as mountain or strong wind such as the jet stream. When this happens, the air begins to swirl. The swirling of air can cause low pressure. Okay? Cyclones. A swirling center of low air pressure is a cyclone, from a Greek word meaning wheel. As warm air at the center of a cyclone rises, the air pressure decreases. Cooler air blows inward from nearby areas of higher air pressure. Wind spiral inward toward the center. If you're going to look at the cyclone above, you will see that the cyclone spins counterclockwise. Okay? Next. Next is anticyclones. An anticyclone is the opposite of cyclone. An anticyclone are high pressure at the center of dry air. Winds spiral outward from the center, moving towards areas of lower pressure. Winds in the anticyclone spins clockwise. Okay, remember, in cyclone it spins counterclockwise, and in anticyclone it is clockwise. Air moves out from the center. Cool air moves downward from higher in the troposphere. Okay? Summary. What are the major air masses? First is tropical, polar, maritime, and continental. So first, tropical. So when we say tropical or warm, air masses form in the tropics and have a low air pressure. Next, polar or cold, air masses form north of 50 degrees north latitude and south of 50 degrees south latitude. Polar air masses have high air pressure. Next, maritime. Maritime air masses form over oceans. Water evaporates from the oceans, so the air can become very humid. Next is continental. Continental air masses form over land. Continental air masses have less exposure to large amounts of moisture from bodies of water. Okay? How air masses move? So air masses moves by prevailing westerlies, jet streams, and fronts. What are the main types of fronts? We have cold fronts, warm fronts, occluded fronts, and stationary fronts. Thank you for listening and watching in our video. I hope you learned something. And always remember, think like a proton and stay positive. Okay? See you in our next video. Bye-bye.